All right. Welcome to the Daily Faded. My name is Hetz, and this is where we get faded daily and talk about the news and politics of the day and what another day it is as we try to count every vote here in the good old US of A. Yeah, it's been a crazy day. I've been hyper tuned into the news, as have a lot of people been. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about, but I had to start with that Paula White video because she's a lunatic. Uh, she's a lunatic. So she's calling the angels of South America and Africa to come ensure the white supremacist victory. Oh, God. Before we go off on all the election fun, let's talk about where we're standing, where we're at with the coronavirus. So 49 million cases worldwide, 601,000 new cases today. That is a very high number. 1.2 million dead around the globe, with 8,704 deaths reported today. Also a very high number, historically speaking, that is. The United States, we've had 9.9 million cases with 115,893 new cases today, and 1,118 deaths today, which brings us to 240,000 deaths in the United States from COVID-19. And of course, we always try and check on the California numbers. Here in California, 958,000 confirmed cases for the second highest number in the nation, with 6,214 new cases today. That's considerably higher than what we've been seeing over the last several days, and 48 deaths, contributing to 17,864 deaths in California. And the COVID tracking project, our daily update is published. States reported record numbers of tests, 1.5 million, and cases, 116,000. Hospitalizations continue their sharp rise. The death toll was 1,124. And if you see, the current hospitalized is 53,322. That number has been going up incredibly fast, and is approaching the peak of around 60,000 that we hit both in April and again in August. So we'll see. I mean, I think everything is going in exactly the wrong direction, and there's no one minding the shop. There's no one doing anything about it. No coronavirus task force meetings or briefings or any of that kind of thing. Anyway, now let's get to the election. Here is the map as it currently stands, and it's pretty much the same as it was last night. With a couple of crucial differences, and those differences are that the vote count has gotten much smaller, and in some places, Joe Biden's lead has gotten smaller. So here we are in Georgia with over 98% of estimated votes reported. Trump has a lead of like 1,900 votes. Has a lead of like 1,900 votes. And when we go to look at where the votes are coming in from, the only counties that aren't completely over 98% of estimated votes reporting are blue counties. although even most of these all have over 98% reported. I saw not too long ago a tweet updating this race that said it was 1,903 votes that Donald Trump is leading by, with 16,000 votes left to count. So I don't know if they're still counting, as it is 11 o'clock at night in Georgia right now. So I don't know if we'll be hearing anything more about this tonight. But they could make one more announcement, and Georgia could get called for Joe Biden. North Carolina, I'm starting to think that Biden's going to win Georgia, which surprises me, because I didn't think it was possible due to the voter suppression in Georgia and Brian Kemp, the current governor and former Secretary of State, who helped rig the state permanently. Well, not permanently, but rig the state against the voters, really, against the voters. I would say against the Democrats, but it's against the voters. So in North Carolina, again, there are some counties here where Biden is leading. Chatham County, Wake County, 95% left to be reported. Orange County, where he's winning 75% of the vote, and there's still 18% of votes to be reported. Forsyth County, again, Biden is winning 56% of the vote, and there's still 11% to be reported. Most of these other ones are all 98%. Here's a red county that has an incredibly small number of votes that is heavily Trump, but again, it's a really small number of votes. So it's possible that North Carolina could swing to Biden. It's possible. We'll see. It's 2,732,000 votes to 2,655,000 votes. So a bit more of a ways to go. 1.4%, a bit more of a ways to go in North Carolina. Before we get to Pennsylvania, let's take a look at Arizona. Arizona is done reporting for the day, but if you take a look here, it has been tightening. Biden is in the lead with 90% of estimated votes reporting. So Trump is saying that we should stop the counting in Pennsylvania, but continue the counting in Arizona because it's getting closer and it might help him. So Pima County, which is 59% Biden, has 5% left to report. Maricopa County has 11% to report, and that's 51% Biden. All of these other counties that are red counties that Trump has won have very small vote totals, and some of them are over 98% reported. But they have very small vote totals, whereas the vote totals, particularly in Maricopa County, are so much larger. It doesn't seem likely to me that Donald Trump is going to catch Joe Biden in Arizona. That just doesn't seem too likely. Nevada, again, blue counties, Clark County, home to Las Vegas, 12% left to report, and Biden is winning 53% of the vote there. Reno, 6% left to report, and Biden is winning 50% of the vote. Las Vegas and Reno and Washoe County are the two most populous counties in Nevada. You look, all of these red counties, several of them have not been fully reported. So there is still vote coming in that favors Donald Trump, but they are all, look, this county has less than 1,000 votes total. Eureka County. Lander County has 2,500 votes total. I mean, the vote totals here are tiny, so whether or not there's enough here for Trump to finally eclipse Biden and take Nevada, I don't know. We will find out the next batch of votes around noon Eastern tomorrow, so 9 o'clock here in LA. So we're not going to hear anything else about Arizona or Nevada today. And then, of course, we have Pennsylvania. This number has been coming down all day long. It was 100,000, then it was 70,000, then it was 50,000. Now it's 0.4%, and it looks to be about 25,000 votes, with 95% of the vote reported. But here, when we look at Bucks County has 6% to report. That's going for Biden. Lehigh County has 10% to report. That's going for Biden. Center County is going for Biden. It's got 13% left to report. Pittsburgh is going for Biden heavily. It's got 5% left to report. It seems inevitable that Pennsylvania is going to flip to Biden. Officials have said they expect most ballots to be counted by tomorrow, Friday, November 6th. So that's where we stand. Joe Biden has got 253 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 214 electoral votes. And, so, man, today was just a circus. It was a circus. As usual, Jordan Chariton and Jen Dyes at Status Coup were in the middle of it today. And their coverage from Philadelphia was amazing. There was a small group of, count every legal vote, MAGA Trump people, and then a massive, massive crowd of legitimate count every vote Democrat counter protesters. I don't know what you want to call them. Normal people, healthy Americans who want the so-called democratic process to work out the way it's supposed to. That's what I would call them. As Jordan was interviewing people, they're the only state that hasn't been too disappointing. This was in Philadelphia. And it was fascinating. When Jordan Chariton was interviewing people, he could not find a Trump supporter who could actually explain what the fraud was that they were trying to guard against, who could actually explain what the problems were. None of them could actually explain anything. They kept saying something about observers not being allowed in, but there were an equal number of Republican and Democratic observers in there as the votes were being counted. And then, of course, Corey Lewandowski and Pam Biondi showed up and claimed that, we're losing. It's unfair. That's exactly right, Hamza. Made some bogus bullshit claims and then said they're looking for federal injunctive relief. And, I think the thing that was amazing about watching this all unfold is that it had been reported during the day that the president's team was really, really nervous about Fox News calling Pennsylvania for Joe Biden. And essentially, because they've already called Arizona at Fox, that would mean that Fox News was calling the election for Biden. And the Trump team was really, really afraid of this happening. So they were basically reaching out to the courts and trying to get the election counting to be stopped. And it basically looked like we either the Supreme Court's going to stop this or Fox News is going to call it. One of those two things is going to happen. Now, neither of them happened. Despite Corey Lewandowski standing in front of the Pennsylvania Vote Center, whatever it's called in Philadelphia, standing out there with a bullhorn being drowned out by the dance music of the pro-democracy people. Despite that, the Supreme Court did not intercede and stop the counting. in Philadelphia, which clearly they should have if they wanted to facilitate the coup that Donald Trump has his mind on. Anyway, so that was all a pretty amazing display. And then there was Trump. There was Trump today, giving what I think will go down as one of his great final moments. And when I say great, I don't mean great. I mean pathetic. So let's see here. Aaron Rupar wrote about it on Axios. Trump's desperate White House rant was everything people feared about his presidency in a nutshell. There's no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Trump is lying. If anyone was hoping that President Donald Trump would gracefully acknowledge the increasingly likely chance that he will lose the presidency to Joe Biden, the dishonest press event he held Thursday evening at the White House indicated he still has little respect for democracy. With Biden now in striking distance of the 270 electoral votes he needs to become president-elect, as this is written, he is narrowly trailing Trump in 20 electoral vote Pennsylvania, with a large number of votes in heavily Democratic areas still to be counted. The president stood behind the White House podium and tossed out baseless accusations that he was a victim of election fraud. Trump began with a whopper, saying, "If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us." In fact, even the Trump campaign has failed to provide evidence that fraud played any role in Trump seemingly coming up short in key states like Arizona and Nevada. "If you count the legal votes, I easily win," he came out and said. And look, it's not that there's no danger in what Trump is saying and doing right now. There is huge danger in it. There's a huge ability for it to radicalize people and bring out violence in the streets. But he just seemed so pathetic, as Hamza said, greatly pathetic. It was so sad. He looked so beaten because everyone in the room knows that he's lying. Everyone listening knows that he's lying. Not everyone. The cultists don't know. But show love and empathy to them, for they believe crazy things and they don't know. They don't know. But unless they're being violent or annoying to you, and then you can have less empathy for them. But anyway, he's just lost it. Trump then tried another argument, claiming that the media conspired to interfere in the election against him, getting it knowingly wrong by inflating Biden's popularity in an attempt to demoralize Trump supporters. He contradicted himself by framing efforts to count all the votes in places like Michigan and Wisconsin as part of a plot to steal the election from him, while in the next breath insisting that all the votes in Arizona must be counted so he can continue closing the gap in a state that Fox News has already called for Biden. Trump wrapped things up by calling for the Supreme Court to save him. It's going to end up perhaps at the highest court of the land, then essentially tried to call dibs on certain states before walking out of the room without taking questions, seemingly oblivious to the reality that it doesn't work like that. Look, that's the truth of it, Yeah, let's remember, shockingly close race, Hamza, but let's remember that Biden's going to win. He's right now ahead at least 3 million votes in the popular vote. And I think he's going to end up at least 5 million votes ahead of Trump in the popular vote, I think, because there's still a ton of votes to be counted in California. We take a month to count in California. There's all kinds of votes outstanding in blue and red states that haven't been counted yet. So, these are just the battleground states that we're talking about. So anyway, so that was the madness of King Trump today. And his disciples and his mouthpieces were out fuming at the mouth everywhere. and grabbing cameras everywhere they could today. I saw Eric and Laura Trump out at one point claiming fraud. Yeah, saw the Pam Biondi and Corey Lewandowski thing. But perhaps one of the most dangerous Trump people was, as always, Steve Bannon. It's from Huffington Post, from HuffPo, as they call it, I guess. Steve Bannon, I'd put Anthony Fauci's head on a pike as a warning. That's how you win the revolution, said Trump's former strategist. Former White House strategist Steve Bannon on Thursday discussed the imagined beheadings of infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci and FBI Director Christopher Wray, saying he would like to put their heads on pikes outside the White House as a warning. Bannon described his outrageous scenario on his podcast War Room Pandemic by first characterizing Trump as a kind-hearted man who presumably would be opposed to such an action. But as for Bannon, quote, I'd actually like to go back to the old times of Tudor England. I'd put the heads on pikes. I'd put them at the two corners of the White House as a warning to federal bureaucrats, he explained. As Media Matters for America first reported, you either get with the program or you're gone. Time to stop playing games. Bannon added, blow it all up. Bannon's co-host Jack Maxey appeared to agree, indicating that the men were traitors. You know what, Steve? Yesterday there was the anniversary of the hanging of two Tories in Philadelphia, Maxey said. These were Quaker businessmen who had cohabitated, if you will, with the British while they were occupying Philadelphia. These people were hung. This is what we used to do to traitors. That's how you win the revolution, Bannon said. The revolution wasn't some sort of garden party. It was a civil war. So there you have it. There you have it. Everything you need to know about this situation and everything you need to know about what these people are willing to do to hold on to power. This kind of rhetoric, I mean, wow. To think that this guy was a White House advisor, to think that this guy, oh, God. And when you say you want someone's head on a pike, you're basically, it's a fatwa. You're telling people to go kill them. Go kill Dr. Fauci. The person who's most trusted on this pandemic, except by Steve Bannon and douchebag co-host who he was talking to. That's the way the world looks today. Yeah, it is spooky stuff. It is spooky stuff. But look, I mean, we've known all along that Trump is a fascist. We've known all along what this movement is capable of, or at least we've known for a long time now. We've watched QAnon grow. We've watched the militias grow and the white supremacy grow. And now is when they need to call in all those favors. So, but that said, watching Status Quo's coverage of Philadelphia, the Trump contingent was very lame. They were very lame and not threatening at all. That said, there have been protesters with guns, I believe, in both Michigan and Arizona. I'm not sure about Nevada. But anyway, so look, we could have a result on the election by the middle of the day tomorrow, I would think. I don't imagine we're going to get any more updates tonight or a 2 a.m. call of the election for Biden. But, you know, you never know, maybe. Other news that I want to touch on. This is a tweet thread about the Democratic caucus call that happened today. This is from Erica Warner, Washington Post congressional reporter. Abigail Spanberger on Democratic caucus call, we lost races we shouldn't have lost. Defund police almost cost me my race because of an attack ad. Don't say socialism ever again. Need to get back to basics, is yelling. Abigail Spanberger, I have news for you. we're not going to stop saying defund the police, and we're not going to stop saying socialism. And if you can't win your race, that's on you. That's on you. Because to talk shit about Black Lives Matter when Black Lives Matter motivated so many voters, so many black and white voters. If we run this race again, we will get fucking torn apart in 2022, Spanberger says. Pelosi comes back on and says she disagrees. They won the House and presidency. We have a mandate, Pelosi says before getting off the call. Now that is equally deranged. It's equally deranged. Thinking you can tell the entire caucus that they can't say socialism, that's deranged on Abigail Spanberger's part. Thinking that you have a mandate under these circumstances, when you lost seats in the House, when you didn't take the Senate, no. I don't think you can say you have a mandate. Also, earlier in the call, Debbie Mucarsel Powell, who lost her race, was crying and mentioned how people can't pronounce her name. Instead, stop being negative on Twitter. Jeffries comes back on to tell people to stop leaking and that reporters aren't your friends. Jayapal is telling Jeffries to find the leakers. It just keeps going as Pascrell now calling out Schumer. Pelosi's done an amazing job, but where's Schumer in all of this? Says Pelosi has one hand tied behind her back. Oh, what a great thing to do on the Democratic House caucus call is throw Chuck Schumer under the bus, because you know what? It's safe to call out Schumer. Can't call out Nancy Pelosi now, can you? Rashida Tlaib saying, before we make painful statements, we need to wait and see how the numbers come down. Feels like I'm being asked to be quiet and we need to appeal to certain people. And that's not right. Tlaib, they called Obama worse. They called him a Muslim, a socialist. You can blame these words. But if it wasn't on BLM, would have been something else. The end is in sight for this Dem caucus call that started more than 2 hours ago. Jeffrey said 7 to 8 members in queue, and then we'll wrap up. And then she finishes with it. So a lot of chaos in the Democratic House caucus. A lot of chaos. And, look, the current Democratic House has not, they've passed a lot of legislation. They have passed a lot of legislation. Some of it is really good, like the Expanded Voting Protections Act and the $15 an hour minimum wage bill, although that doesn't come in until 2025 and people need a raise now. But putting that aside, despite the fact that they've passed a lot of legislation, there hasn't been a guiding vision or a guiding mission of these 2 years of House leadership. So I don't think you can say that Pelosi and the Democrats put forward a vision for how to govern America, and Americans came out en masse and voted for it, because they didn't put forward a vision other than we're not Trump. That's what they ran on. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a former Republican turned Democrat, though I think he was turned by George W. Bush, not by Donald Trump. And he said to me, WTF, why didn't Joe Biden run on the $15 an hour minimum wage, which is the most obvious thing on the planet? He never talked about it. It's in his platform, but he never talked about it. Florida voted overwhelmingly for a $15 an hour minimum wage. They also voted for Donald Trump. That's a failure at political malpractice on the part of the Democrats, because Floridians knew they wanted a $15 an hour minimum wage. They didn't know which candidate was actually going to give it to them. So, anyway, I am happy about some dissent in the ranks in the House caucus, because I want to divide and conquer. I'm fully into attacking on both fronts, both electoral politics and revolutionary in the streets politics. So I only have a couple more minutes, and I just want to squeeze this one out. But hold on a second. I need to smoke. Hamza, you need to hit me up with a direct message on Twitter so we can make our plans. All right. Okay. LA Times. California goes big on criminal justice reform, setting a more progressive path. There is a shot of protesters protesting LA County District Attorney Jackie Lacey. California voters expressed a clear appetite for criminal justice reform on election night, supporting a series of ambitious changes after a summer of mass protests sparked a painful reckoning around racial injustice and debate over the role of policing. Results throughout the state have not been finalized, but on statewide ballot measures and in key local races, voters backed progressive candidates and policies that promise to hold police more accountable and shift taxpayer funding away from law enforcement and towards social services. In some cases, voters leapfrogged their own elected officials in state legislature to enact policies that never gained traction or fell short of passage during recent legislative sessions in Sacramento, where the idea of broad statewide policing reform has loomed large but never fully materialized. California has been a leader on easing the tough-on-crime tactics of an earlier era, but the results of Tuesday's balloting opens a new front for more aggressive reforms, such as calls to reduce funding to law enforcement agencies. Well-funded police unions and other groups who were able to stall police reform legislation in Sacramento were less effective convincing voters the move would endanger public safety, but it also comes in a year in which crime, particularly homicides, are rising significantly in some cities, including Los Angeles. There was a time in California where the impulse was to incarcerate more people. 3 strikes and you are out, Erwin Chemerinsky, dean of the UC Berkeley School of Law, said of the election results Wednesday. Erwin Chemerinsky should be the next Supreme Court justice. Shout out to my peeps. I don't think that is the impulse in California any longer. In Los Angeles County, one of the nation's largest criminal jurisdictions and a longtime trend center in criminal justice issues, voters appeared to have ousted District Attorney Jackie Lacey, who was accused by her critics of being too lenient on cops and too cozy with police unions, and passed a measure mandating that county officials spend more on jail diversion programs, mental health, and housing. In San Francisco, voters approved measures that will ramp up oversight of the local sheriff and undo a requirement that the city's police department maintain a certain size, a rule that some had seen as a barrier to defunding the department more broadly. At the state level, voters restored the right to vote to parolees and rejected a measure that would have increased penalty for petty offenses. We got it right on some criminal justice things here in California with this election. I am super stoked about Gascon winning the district attorney race. Of course, they didn't mention him. He is a criminal justice reformer, a legit guy who will be on that beat as the DA here in LA. And Jackie Lacey protects killer cops, so I'm glad she's out. Hallelujah for that. So anyway, all right, guys, that's it for this week. I will be back on Monday, and thank you to my patrons and to everyone who is watching. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and man, it sneaks up on you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Folks, this daily is faded. Good night.